Hey everyone, it's me, Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and this is my comic book countdown yet again, kind of early for me in the week. I seem to get through my comic books quicker and have this moment to record. So I thought I'd do it. I'm going to look at 10 comic books that I bought this past Wednesday. As I film this, it's Friday. And I will give you a few of my thoughts and put them in my comic book countdown. Number 10 being the one I enjoyed the least, number one being the one I enjoyed absolutely the most. But all totally subjective. Subjective for the week versus other weeks. Maybe I should switch to grading them. That would be more comparative, wouldn't it? But also just based on my feelings and reactions and expectations and all of that. So, in at number 10, I have to say, I think I enjoyed reading everything I got this week. In at number 10, though, is number 10 of Tom King, Mitch Gerads, and Evan Shaner's Strange Adventures. Amazing science fiction question mark. I didn't notice that question mark before. Come on, I just want amazing science fiction, no question marks. So, what made this number 10 for me? I mean, it's already been a book that kind of lost me a bit along the way. Ironically, maybe this issue was pretty easy to understand. It was one giant info dump, and it was one long tease to the one point it wanted to make on the last page. So I guess I shouldn't give that away. I have to say, it did catch me a bit by surprise. What is now, at least as of issue 10, the real reason for the behavior of Adam Strange and for how he defeated the Picts. So it continues to be something that knocks down and cuts heroes to the quick, makes them not heroic. And the art was beautiful, but like I said, it was one long info dump. Is that the best way to do a comic? Usually no. Is this the only way Tom King could have? Ooh, look at that. Interesting. You don't see that in a DC comic too often. Although we did see Hitler on the toilet once in a Grant Morrison, Jim Lee comic, didn't we? Was this the only way that he could do the reveal of this? Or was it the only way he could do it and stretch it out so that all of this makes 12 issues? I'm not sure. So I kind of enjoyed it, but I also felt a little less excited by it than the other comics. Also, lower on my excitement, in at number 9, is The Blue Flame. I'm now at a point where I'm trying to try more Vault comics. I definitely feel like I've missed some good ones, and some of the Vault comics I have jumped on have proved to be quite good. And some of them I do have doubts at first, and then they get better as they go along, or get better for me. Like Engine Word and like The Picture of Everything Else. Both of those improve with time. I picked this up off the rack. I suppose I might pick issue 2 up off the rack. I kind of like the idea contained in here of a superhero who maybe exists in two worlds, or one of the worlds is fantasy, and one of the worlds is a world of superheroes who are just barely superheroes, but are kind of personalities and celebrities at seemingly kind of a low level also. But there was something just kind of flat and bland about this issue for me. So I just kind of enjoyed it. It was okay. Like I said, I liked everything I read this week. But then picking up the pace a bit, Old Guard, I'm putting this at number 8. I appreciate the attempt to do short stories. And this issue had a really good one, I thought, by Kelly Jo Sudaconic. Kelly Jo Kelly, where'd I get the Joe? Kelly Sudaconic and Valentine Delandro. It reminded me how much I can sometimes like Valentine's art. And I think, Rebecca McDonald did the colors. Those are very nice, mostly flat colors, which is much appreciated. But she has good taste in the colors. So yeah, this was a very good story, I thought, or a very sort of short meditation. I think the reason why this isn't like even higher on my list, but I totally enjoyed it, was I can't quite remember which character this is about from our regular Old Guard crew. It's been quite a while since I read Old Guard, and maybe I never 100% like caught the names and everything about them. I do remember there was a guy with a big nose, and so I think he is here in this story. He's a Frenchman, and this is a Wild West story. It was also good. I think I like the Kelly Sue and Delandra one better, but I liked both of these short stories. But both of them suffer by the fact that I'm just so it's my fault. I'm just not as recently connected. These characters aren't as vivid in my mind from their original stories. Maybe it would help if I watched the movie, although I assume not. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this series. Who was the second story was written by Eric Troutman, which is a vaguely familiar name. Art by Mike Henderson. Colors by Daniela Miwa, who I think is the regular colorist on this book, or I've seen her colors somewhere else. And she does a very nice job too. So overall, this is a very good package, and I enjoyed it. I didn't dislike the first issue of this series of short stories about the Old Guard, but I think I like this one even better. Where does this document camera focus best? That's interesting. Is it my hands? My hands in the picture maybe keep it from focusing well. Just noticed that. You'll have to, or maybe it's just moving it around a lot. Made the focus go bad. Okay, next up. And this one I had high expectations for because I really loved issue 2. So I put Beta Ray Bill down, even though this is all a good pile. But for the Beta Ray Bill record, this is lower. There's a weird light there. Makes it look like I've got a wart or something there, but I don't. I have narcissism here. So anyway, it was an okay issue. I think it's just the previous issue was a lot more fun. This had a lot of... It was basically just a scene of them going down into what is it, Muspelheim, into a lake of lava and fighting off some demons. And that was pretty much it. I mean, the interesting angle was dealing with the fact that his ship, which has some kind of artificial intelligence, has somehow evolved into an actual character, which is an interesting element, but I don't feel like it was handled particularly strongly. It was okay. There seemed to be a hint of maybe romance between him and his ship. Well, this was a really cool moment where her body splits open and a special axe for him to fight with arrives. I didn't feel like as much there. I didn't feel as much energy in this issue as I did the previous 2 issues. It could have just been me. But anyway, it's still worth reading, and I'm definitely in for the ride for Beta Ray Bill, which is only going to be 5 issues, I believe. So in at number 6 is Ces Cuerdas. I don't know what Cuerdas is. Is Ces mean 6 or 16, or is it something else? I've been studying French a lot lately, trying to read French comics, but my Spanish is non-existent. So, Ces Cuerdas, Defender of Mexico. And I saw, I can't remember his name, but one of my comic book friends on Twitter showing this. Otherwise, I would not have been aware of it. And when I went to a different shop than normal, they actually had it up by the counter, which is when I realized this was a new comic. And it's from SourcePoint, which is a publisher I know almost nothing about. And then it references this sort of online school of comics called Comics Experience. So this comic is somehow related to Comics Experience. And it's written by Anthony Rella and art by Benito Gallego, who I think is just a gun for hire because it's just copyright by Anthony. And I've seen a lot of Benito Gallego art, and he's one of my favorite artists in The Creeps. He has a very 1970s John Buscema-ish style. And the colors here are very bright and give it a kind of different feel because I'm used to seeing him in black and white. So this was a fun but not 100% coherent to me story about a superhero of sorts in Mexico. And it involves some kind of religious death cult and also the infamous gangs in Mexico, I think, if I'm understanding who everyone is. But so I had this feeling of a really cool story, but I didn't fully understand everything. But I enjoyed it, and I hope to find future issues. I guess maybe I should ask my shop to order it, or keep going back to Cosmic Monkey, where I picked it up. And I really get a kick out of the 1970s style art, and I hope that this Benito Gallego gets more high profile jobs and brings back this style of art. That would be so awesome. So definitely the art style had a lot to do with me ranking it up high above some other comics. I also think it's really cool to have a Mexican superhero that I can read in English. So I hope it succeeds. They at least plan issue 2 of 3, so they're planning 3 issues. Yeah. So does anyone know what is Source Point? Is that is that a real ongoing company, or do they just occasionally publish comics? I'm not sure. Then at number 5 was The God Damned. This suffers from being so late. This comic came out 7 or 8 months. It's just a 5 or 6 issue series. It's issue 5, so it's a 5-issue series, and issue 4 came out last November. So that is just about 7 months ago, and so it lost a lot of steam for that. But I think all along, this story's been just interesting for me, but unclear. A lot of it, to a certain degree, doesn't make sense. Maybe there's some passage in the Bible I should read, since this is supposedly based on the time between Cain killing Abel and the flood from Noah. But actually, this turned out, and I love the art and color here from Ig Guerra. Where are the credits? They aren't here. From R.M. Guerra, and the colors from Julia Brusco. And so it's a very bold and savage visually comic that really works, and the colorist helps a lot. And it's a very tragic story about these girls who are forced to mate with angels, or supposedly they're angels. They seem more like demons, but they come from a shaft of light above. And then they give birth to horrifying, monstrous children. And often they die. So anyway, this girl and her friend finally succeed in sort of overthrowing the system. And at the end of the story, it's almost a happy ending compared to how unhappy the ending of the previous Goddamned, how nihilistic the previous Goddamned was. But basically, I guess I won't give away the last page there, but it almost implies a future adventure that would be more fun. We'll see. In at number 4, I've got Two Moons. And this also was one that I had high expectations from the first 3 issues. This is issue 4. And this issue felt a little more generic horror to me. It was still, beautifully illustrated, fantastic colors. I mean, just look at how those clouds look in the background. And I think because there was so much interesting stuff going on in the first 3 issues, that it comes down to more of your basic horror situation. A group of the monsters are at last revealed, and a group of monsters comes to attack the group of humans. Are they in a town or just cooped up somewhere? So as you can see, it looks really cool. It's still a cool horror comic, and I'm not dissing it at all. But like I said, expectations were very high. So if it had reached, my expectation was this would be like the number one comic of the week. But it was number 4. In at number 3 is the comic that most surprised my expectations. I just grabbed this off the shelf at the last minute. I wasn't going to get it. But something made me a little curious. This is a new Mr. Miracle series starring Shiloh Norman, who was created by Jack Kirby to replace Scott Free as the new Mr. Miracle. Right at the end of Jack Kirby's run, he created Shiloh, and Shiloh was kind of an apprentice to Mr. Miracle. And in this version, Mr. Miracle is long dead, I guess, or been dead a while anyway. And Shiloh Norman is the new Mr. Miracle, and he's a celebrity. And if he's a superhero at all, it's hard to tell. But it plays up the concept of a African American who's wearing a mask, and the public does not know he's African American, and he's reluctant to reveal his real face. I think he enjoys the kind of celebrity that anonymity brings him, and so we get his kind of struggle with that, his arguments with his agent, and his attempt at dating, where he has to have a woman sign an NDA with his entertainment lawyer before she can go on a date with him. And I liked that he totally blows the date. He's so into his own ego and stardom. And I looked up the writer of this, and he is an African American who has worked in Hollywood as a writer. So I feel like he's used Mr. Miracle, who is a celebrity, and used the fact that it's a long-standing thing that there is a black Mr. Miracle, who's a successor to the well-known Mr. Miracle. There's actually a Mr. Miracle, a real Mr. Miracle human being who came before Scott Free, and in here they seem to imply he was a black man, and I can't remember if he was a black man in Mr. Miracle. But if you think about the New Gods, Jack Kirby's New Gods run, that was a metaphor for World War II and the Holocaust and everything. And Scott Free, Mr. Miracle, was metaphorically like a Holocaust survivor, someone who escaped the camps. And now metaphorically, this Mr. Miracle is perhaps it's going to work out that way, kind of a metaphorical stand-in, a metaphor for certain kinds of African American struggles in our United States society, where you can be successful on one level and respected, and then on another level still walk down the street and have people eye you as if you're a shoplifter and all of that. And all the strange stuff that goes on with that kind of effect in life. So I'm looking at this as kind of metaphor, and also metaphor for celebrity and metaphor for what celebrity does to your life. So an interesting mix of things. Now, what it may be missing is, along with art that could be, this art is kind of too over the top. And another odd thing about the art is the artist goes to great pains to make Mr. Miracle's, you can't see it right there, Mr. Miracle's face through his Mr. Miracle mask is pretty clear and vivid, and kind of reflects perhaps a stereotype of an African American face, or a certain kind of recognizable African American face. But what I'm thinking is what may or may not work out with this is bringing in the part of the plot that's not metaphorical. That's the superhero plot. Right at the end, I'm sorry I'm giving it away, but this character, Never Free, or Navarre Free, is claiming to be the daughter of Big Barda and Scott Free. Did they have a daughter? in the weird recent Mr. Miracle miniseries from Tom King, they had a son, And I don't recall anything about a daughter, but I haven't read all of the DC comics involving Mr. Miracle. Like, for instance, I haven't read any of the Justice League International that had a lot of Big Barda and Scott Free. Did they have a daughter there? Anyway, so it could go wrong or could go right, but I was pleasantly surprised for a DC superhero comic. I thought it brought in a lot of layers, and the writer did a lot of good despite kind of what I would call overdone artwork and overdone coloring. An artist trying to be in that Neil Adams, Jim Lee tradition of comics, but also a colorist who just went way over the top. But that seems to happen a lot with colorists lately. Okay, in at number 2 is this comic Made in Korea, which hasn't fully developed yet. Like, it's not fully developed what the plot is, but it's clearly about artificial intelligence in surrogate children, robot surrogate children, because no one can have babies anymore. At least if they can afford it, they're buying their own children. And so our characters buy a child that may have new programming in it, that this sort of outlaw, this guy who's been fiddling with the software at his own company, but not wanting anyone to know, did to one of these robots, and they got her at a discount. So I loved the art, and especially loved the coloring, I think. And I'm very intrigued by the storyline. It's not feel totally new, but it feels like a new angle on things. And so I'm interested to spend more time in this world. It was kind of a pleasant surprise. I didn't know what to think of that. I picked it up off the racks either. And finally, the one that satisfied me the most was Ha Ha from W. Maxwell Prince and Walta. What's Walta's first name? Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Lettering by Good Old Neon. Who's Good Old Neon, I wonder? I love the art. Walta's coloring himself here, and I think that made a big difference for me. A lot of times he has, what's her name? Anyway, he has a colorist that has often done a lot of his work, and I feel like she obscures his work too much. And so I feel like it really helped to have him color it. And I don't know how to describe this story. It's almost like a prose poem or a reverie. It's not a horror story. It's not a twist ending story. It's not really a story about clowns. Whatever the idea of Prince behind this Ha Ha series is, it's not a horror series. It's just some magical, you can't quite put your finger on it, chemical storytelling, the alchemy of storytelling, that's what I was going to say, that somehow works despite not being able to tell how and why it works, but it really worked. So I think this is now, I've liked a lot of the issues of Ha Ha, but I think this is now my absolute favorite. And I can't tell you what kind of story it was. It was a story that encompasses characters from very different parts of life and times in life, and brings them all together somehow and connects them, kind of connects our humanity together, for a lack of a better way to put it. I think I'll be rereading the whole Ha Ha series when it's done and try to see more, but I think we're seeing the development with the stuff that Maxwell Prince does in comics, the development of something slightly new in comics, at least in comics that I've read or in mainstream comics. He's working his way up to a whole new ways of using pictures and words to tell unusual, imaginative, slightly surreal personal stories. And I could see that when I went back and read that older comic by him about the person trapped in the library. It's almost like I've now watched him work through different ways to tell stories or to approach story. And he's heading somewhere new. It's exciting. Okay, I am out of time, so I will upload this later, but thank you for joining me, and I hope you had a great comic book week.